up, Pittsburgh Steel fans? Matty Shannon White here with another episode of the Steelers Global Perspective. Now, sometimes they say these days I hear old is new and things are back in vogue, and there's all these other different sayings we can have. You came to me, Shannon, with a topic and an idea for our Steelers Global Perspective based off a comment that you gave that I thought was particularly astute. And I was glad you wanted to talk about it because I was keen to unpack that as well. You reckon Blitzburgh's back?
Yeah, it's funny. Sometimes it's out of necessity when you dust off, some old schemes, and I think that's where the Steelers are right now. We were in discussions about the Cam Hayward situation.
Correct.
And, just the Steelers are talking about letting him play out this final year and then decide what they want to do moving forward. And Cam said, no, I want an extension.
Yeah.
They're not trying to not give him his money, but they're just, not wanting to extend it down the road.
Yeah.
And I think that's smart because you don't want to have so much tied up in a 35-year-old defensive lineman.
Yeah.
Who I do not think, due to the severity of that core injury, and I don't know if he'll get his full burst back because, he was always a strength player, but he had that little bit of extra at the end to get to the quarterback. I'm afraid that might be gone now at his age. So we were talking about where does he fall on the Mount Rushmore of Steelers defensive linemen? Me and my podcast partners, Tate and Big G. And I was like, in my opinion, Aaron Smith was every bit as effective as Cam Hayward, but they're asked to do two different things. And, there's some debate there. People was like, some people were Team Smith and some people were Team Hayward. And I said, Brett Kiesel. There was
I was going
to
say, like, you look at Cam Hayward was a first-round draft pick. Brett Kiesel was a 7.
Yeah, like, and Kiesel played a lot like Aaron Smith because that's what they were asked to do, let's say, in Dick LeBeau's scheme. And you look back at how effective those Blitzburgh defenses of the 90s were, and it was the linemen sacrificed. They were team first. They were guys that did their job, tied up blockers, clogged running lanes, and they let their very talented linebackers and secondary guys feast. And it was super effective. Nowadays, everybody wants their defensive linemen. They want to rush those front four and get pressure and then drop everybody else back. And you don't see as much blitzing, per se, for a lot of teams. But in my opinion, the Steelers' defensive line is set up that they've got guys that can tie up blocks, that can fill running lanes, that can collapse the pocket. But I don't see a dominant pass rusher, even if Benton takes the next step forward in his development. I don't know if he's going to be a dominant pass rusher.
Yeah. But
let's look at what the Steelers have done. They added Patrick Queen. They've got Peyton Wilson. They still got a Landon Roberts. You've got T.J. Watt, Alex Highsmith, Nick Herbig, Jeremiah Moon. They've got.
I will say as well, Moon looks like he's ready to. Like, I know we talked about it, but OTAs but also like the training, the workouts they were doing before rookie minicamp. He looking good, man. That guy looks like that guy is a weapon.
All these linebackers are big and can move. And then you got the secondaries we talked about on a previous segment. All these big avatar guys, and the fastest secondary the Steelers have had in my lifetime. For top to bottom. So the playmakers don't have to be that defensive line. That's just the norm now. Sometimes if you build your team, everybody wants to put up these mad points on the scoreboard. Kansas City's offense last year was quite different. It was the ball control. Patrick Mahomes and Kelsey made the big plays when they were necessary, when they were needed, and they relied on their defense, and they won a Super Bowl. Because they were different than everybody else.
Yeah.
The Miami Dolphins and the 49ers and the team scoring the Ravens, scoring 30, 35 points, they didn't win, did they?
Yeah.
So because the Chiefs were different, I think that's what the Steelers could be this year on offense, but also if they go with that Blitzburgh and they don't necessarily rely on the defensive line to do something they're not capable of doing, which is supplying consistent pressure on the quarterback and just rely on your back guys, your back eight. I think that this team could be different and be unique enough to make some noise.
Playing devil's advocate, I'm not a fan of it, right? I'm just prefacing what I'm about to say with that.
Yeah.
But playing devil's advocate, the reason why, to me, the whole interior defensive lineman pass rush came into vogue is obviously number one. It's really important. I think it's vitally important in a 4-3, and more of the league play a 4-3 than a 3-4.
Definitely a 4-3. Yes.
The other thing is that we know that the NFL's made it a passing league with the way that they've done the rules. Like you can't, they just, it is what it is, right? And they want that with the TV dollars. Now, you talked about and I immediately when you talk about Kansas City, I was thinking, well, what was their interior pass rush like against the 49ers? And you look at what the 49ers do, and they run the football as well, right? So it's interesting that the top two teams that made the Super Bowl had pretty decent defenses and both, have a way to run the football and get their wide receivers involved in what they're doing, as well. Yeah. But for a lot of the league, they are in this pass-happy situation. So do the Steelers run the risk of overly committing to a defense designed to stop offensive, trends and schematics of yesteryear by going back to this, as you said, Blitzburgh style, versus not having, are they basically missing a trick by not having someone that can provide the interior pass rush? And I've also got a caveat that we're saying this is on the proviso that Cam Hayward doesn't come back and, monster everyone again. But,
exactly.
We're working on all of that assumption. But do you think that there's a risk? Do you think that there's a bit of a risk there?
Well, I mean, I think that in a pass-happy league, I think this Steelers team, with the linebackers, the athleticism, and the speed and size of the secondary, is set up to handle the pass-happy league. The teams that we talked about, the Chiefs, the Niners, hopefully the Steelers this year, they exploit those defenses, focusing on the passing game by running the ball, and they control the time of possession, and they win games. The Ravens, the same thing. They run the ball. Yeah. So I think that you're okay to have defensive linemen that can stop the run, which I think the Steelers do.
Yeah.
But not necessarily be your best pass rushers.
Yeah.
Because, in my opinion, if they tie up blockers in open rush lanes, the Steelers got the speed and athleticism in those linebackers now that they are going to get their sacks, and they're going to put pressure. So I actually think that this defense is more set up for success than any defense in a while that the Steelers have trotted out there. Because, again, I think they were trying to kind of go that direction, and then what happened with Shazier. And now you've got Queen, you've got Patrick Wilson, you've got the speed factor back.
Yep.
That they haven't had since Shazier went out.
Yeah, I just say, if we can bring back that and then, sack after sack after sack, I'd absolutely love it. And if Kevin Green can do what he did in the 90s, and then TJ Watt can certainly, feast as well. To close out the segment, I wanted to ask you, I did a video a couple of days back talking about some of the narratives out there with media and, fans and Steelers beat reporters and all this sort of stuff. I'm hearing a lot of stuff about Cole Holcomb, and I'm kind of a bit like, can we just let Cole Holcomb rehab the injury properly? He was never meant to be back by now. He was meant to be back at the start of the season, but suddenly he's like, he's the next cap cut casualty. And the Steelers will eat $3 or $4 million in dead cap I've got to look at the exact number, but I think I looked at a couple of months ago. I think it's 3.8 million or something. They'd eat that at least for this year, plus there's next year's hit. So everyone's like, oh, you can just cut him. And it's like, yeah, but what's the cost to replace him? Like, I'd rather the Steelers have 4 starting capable linebackers, even if it takes Holcomb 6 to 8 weeks to come back. Down the stretch, that could be vital. What if someone else goes down?
Yeah.
Like, I'd rather give him a chance. I don't know. Do you think that, what do you think about Holcomb specifically, but also I want to get your opinion on like this. Everyone jumps to a conclusion to try and get some headline on like, who's going to be cut and who's not when we're so early in the offseason process from like, if you consider how the team comes together. We've literally had 3 OTAs.
I like to, I mentioned Nick Farabaugh earlier, and there's certain guys I do like to follow because you'll just have things just pop up on your Steeler feed, and it'll be just a rumor. And it's like, those sources, and that's where I heard that Holcomb's knee injury, how severe it was, which you could tell by looking at it when it happened. But they said that they could be some nerve damage. Well, I'd mentioned that on a couple of podcasts, and I can't find anything about that, about any nerve damage. He was at OTAs. Now he can't take contact right now, but he is moving around, and he's already to that point. And so obviously he's going to miss probably half the season.
But I'll say this on nerve damage as well. I tore especially if it's nerve damage related to soft tissue.
Yeah.
I've said before, I tore the adductor in my groin. So I understand what Cam Haywood went through. Yeah. I sat out 6 months. I played a really key year for me in high school rugby. I sat out for the year. And if I was, and my physiotherapist who had coached professional sports in AFL, like kicking, so she knew about like legs. She said, if you were 2 years older, I'd rush you into surgery. You'd be back in 6 weeks. But she's like, at your age, at 15 turning 16, I'm not doing that to you. I'm going to get you to sit out most of the year, and you hopefully will never have pain in there again. And she joked me. She said also, as a bloke, you don't want to have pain down there. I'm telling you.
No.
Like, I've seen players, you don't want to have pain down there. It's a bad idea. And part of the problem that I had where the adductor was with the nerve is that's why it was so painful for me more than anything else, because I'd at minimum impinged, but there was some level of nerve damage. Yeah. And I spent most of my rehab with one of the electronic devices, like similar to a TENS machine, literally just revving up the nerve and reducing my increasing my resistance to the threshold of the nerve tingling so that I could do the rehab, because they're like, you're not going to get through the rehab with the nerve damage that you've got. But I came back. I have never had any feeling ever again 3 months into that rehab. So even if he has nerve damage, with the medicine, especially you and I talked on one of our earlier shows about the medical treatment that they get. Like, I don't care. Like, I tore 3 of the 6 ligaments in my ankle, broke the ankle, and again suffered nerve damage when I was 17.
Yeah.
I strapped my ankle for the next 2 or 3 years when I did any sort of like thing more than walking around, a shopping mall, like running, whatever, the exercise bike. I had to do it. But since then, I've never had to strap anything. I never get pain down there. I don't have arthritis down there. And they said I would by 30. Like, and I don't get the medical attention that an NFL player gets.
Professional, yeah. Well, in my opinion, somebody that's had a severe knee injury. The worst problem was I was concerned about the nerve damage affecting his feeling, the sensations of feeling his foot. And, I've seen guys with bad or ankle injuries, and they get drop foot, and they get, they can end a career.
Yeah.
And I was very concerned, but I can't find anything about that. He's back at OTAs. They say he's putting in an incredible amount of effort. And Tomlin bragged on him how hard he's working.
That's what I was going to say. Tomlin was cool with it.
Yeah, and it sounds like he's ahead of schedule. So, time is important. Be patient. Don't rush him. Say, he's on the injury list first 8 weeks. But as you say, injuries happen. Look at last year. And then you got a guy who's starter quality coming back to go with Queen and Wilson and Roberts.
I mean, people keep talking about, before we got Peyton Wilson, Roberts with Queen. I'm sitting there going, Holcomb with Queen. Holcomb with Queen.
Holcomb was playing excellent prior to his injury.
And also,
he
people
got
keep
better
saying,
every week. Every week.
and he was on a 3-year deal, right?
Yeah.
We got him next year as well. That's what you want. Like, do we really want to land him Roberts? Like, I would love him to be on the team and love him to have a good year. But I'm just saying, like, the likelihood is this may be Landon Roberts' lot. Like, he's in the.
Well, I like him coming off the bench.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But if he's
bringing
the
that
third or fourth
thumper
guy,
presence, but
yeah,
you don't want him starting.
no, not at 30. He'll be 32, 33 next year in the type of role he plays. Like, so. And anyway, I just thought we'd close out the Blitzburgh part with a bit of Holcomb because I think
that's great news about Holcomb.
It's fantastic. It's only like 7 months, I think, since the injury.
Yeah, he's ahead of schedule. It has to be. And I'm really happy for him. He's a fine young man, and he just gave such great effort last year, was playing so well, and he got took out by friendly fire. I mean, you can't say your guy's injury prone when you're taken out by your own guy. So,
Totally.
so I'd love to see him make a full recovery.
I love that. Yeah. And I think, yeah, I just think to have that guy, that kind of depth is insane. I think that's yeah. I mean, and also if the Steelers let I know he was a draft pick, I know he's a lot cheaper, but if Trice can sit there and develop, and we can let him come back, or if we can let Devin Bush come back and develop, then we can certainly let, and recover. We can let freaking Holcomb do it. I don't know. I just think Holcomb's getting a rough trot. Also, congratulations to the bloke. I heard he got married in the offseason. So good on.
Well, I didn't hear that. That's great. Yeah.
But I heard that someone said that and then maybe that's an extra motivation and stuff. But good on him. I just think he's a good bloke. Anyway, that's going to wrap up this episode of the Steelers Global Perspective. I'm Matty P with Shannon White. As always, we hope you enjoyed the content. Let us know your thoughts on all of this and more in the comments below. Go Steelers.